Thanks for listening to 3 weeks in a row around this lovely topic of what is wild. I'll actually be gone next week. I'll be in Israel. I occasionally lead adventures, pilgrimages to Israel, so that's where I will be next week, but I'll think of you. And I'm sure I'll come back with some wild story, so you can look forward to that. I thought I'd start like any good sermon this morning with just my phone. Let me just download some news, see what's going on in the world. I'm just going to read you a few things. An operative offered Trump campaign Kremlin connection using NRA ties. Okay. U.S. quits UN Global Compact on migration. I imagine that's not like the migration of geese. Although they probably quit that too. Here's one about tax votes. Here's the NRA eyeing a first big win of Trump presidency. By the way, this is all curated for me thanks to Apple based on things I supposedly like by clicking on things. Here's a good one. Ghost diseases now ravage North Koreans. New documents reveal FBI Clinton cover-up. Big surprise. What else do you want to know about? Here's a stunning dinosaur likely to use armor to flirt as well as fight. Sounds pressing. 65 million years ago, that was a big thing. Is Donald Trump losing control? Just a question. There's an article in here. This is really interesting. Here's an article in The Economist that America's flat earth movement appears to be growing. There are people who believe that the earth is flat. How do you know? When I look outside, I see it looks pretty flat to me. So, okay, let's forget all this and let's just go to Facebook and see what I should be paying attention to. Here's one of my own podcasts. So I'm definitely going to click on that. Just in case I want to listen to myself over and over again. Let's see. I don't understand this one at all. Here's a YouTube video that has a lot of hits. Here's a friend of mine asking if anyone has any sleeping pills. Here's just another friend of mine from Alaska just having a great time with the fam. Here's someone with a picture that says words are not needed, except he's using words to talk about how words are not needed. Here's an interesting article about the gift of death. So I have unusual friends on my Facebook feed here. Here's some friends of mine chopping wood in North Carolina. Here's a teacher friend of mine asking just something about an 8x8 pan of brownies. Seems important. What else? Here's someone who wants to know something about who is the real church. Don't know. I'll skip that one. You can see where I'm going with this. No, you can't. Here's just someone posting pictures from Florida. Here's somebody, philosophy professor of mine, wants me to stand up with grad students about no grad tax. I'm trying to find someone from here. See what they want to. Yeah, now you're getting nervous. Right? That's how I thought I'd start this morning. Why? Because there's like a flood. It's like a massive flood of information. I've already told you, by the way, that quoted that lovely David White poem. This is not the age of information. This is not the age of information. This is The time for loaves and fishes, where one good word is bread for 1,000. But we don't know where to find such a word. And I read these things, and my first question is, what is important? Another question I might have is, what is meaningful? Another question I might have is, what is my relationship to any of this stuff? And it never stops. Because right now, if I open my phone again, my news feed would refresh. And my Facebook feed would refresh. And there'd be a whole set of concerns, interests, stories, articles, threats, people who were having problems baking, just all flooding at me in a kind of hyper urgency. And what do we do about any of this stuff? And I found myself, as you know, Mr. Trump, he tends to dominate the social conversation using Twitter. He gets us talking about things. I found myself posting about the fact that I was annoyed that he was dominating the conversation by posting. See? What is going on? So where is meaning? How do we find meaning? How do we find out what's important? And my understanding of C3 so far in the couple months that I've been here, and also based on our shared values, is that we would like to, in a very simple way, make some change in the world. Do good things in the world. I'd like to do some good things in the world. And there's a lot of painful things happening. There's a lot of people suffering. There are a lot of injustices. There's an absence of meaning, and we want to make a difference. I want to make a difference. And I'm just not always sure how. And I'm not even sure what it's worth paying attention to anymore. Do you know how many things I could get involved with? And what passes as involvement now, if I'm very honest, is talking about the need to be involved. See, I'm involved by talking about the fact that we should be involved. See, you guys should like my comments about things that we need to be involved in. That way we're involved in talking about the things that we need to be talking about, which passes as involvement. Nailed it. So these are things that trouble me. And, what's his name? I probably should have thought about it before my teaching. He's a New York Times dude. He wrote a book called Flatland. Thomas Friedman, yeah. I didn't read the book, but I just like that notion, flatland. That's the way things feel. Everything is flat. Everything is flat, flat, flat. And which is very unnatural. Except the world is flat, of course. It's very unnatural, and we don't know where the priority is anymore. And we think the urgency of the pressing moment is the priority, but that keeps switching on us. And everything is flattened out, and truth is flattened out. And some of that we can blame on postmodern people like me, where they say, your truth is my truth, or your truth is your truth, my truth is my truth, except if your truth is ridiculous and is untrue. Then we don't go there. Then we say, it's ridiculous, a flat earth. Who would think that? I thought we were into you can have your truth and I can have my truth. See, our own postmodern sort of makeup is not functioning all that well. We don't know where truth is, and it's a bit troubling. So, yeah, that's what I want to try to talk about today. And I mentioned this before, and it just keeps coming back around. You should really check out Ken Wilber's new book on Trump in the age of post-truth, or something like that, or the post-truth era. This is Ken Wilber, and he says we live in a time period and an era that's pulling us in two opposing directions. And sometimes in the same moment, sometimes in the same day, sometimes in the same hour, and that is toward nihilism and narcissism. I'm more of a nihilist, if you want to know. Well, now that I'm saying that, it sounds kind of narcissistic to say. I know what I am. That pull, though, and when I read that information about the news, and I could have kept going for 45 minutes on things that are wrong with the world. And what am I supposed to do about it? What am I supposed to do about it? That leads to a kind of nihilism. I don't know. I guess I can't do anything except like or unlike things. You know? And we feel, and sometimes I think, and this is my conspiracy theorist self, if we can keep the level of conversation just in social media around memes and tweets and phrases, it will sort of cloud our vision so we really won't actually do anything at all except just talk on this surface level, feeling like as if we've done something. In other words, it keeps us asleep. The other extreme is to go into a kind of narcissism, which is, I don't know anymore, but I'm going to get all I can. And it's about me. And it's about protection. Protecting my rights and my ideas and my values and my skin color and my tribe and my family and my checkbook and my way of life. Me. Because it seems actually kind of scary and dark. So we get pulled in these directions. And I'm saying, it doesn't matter what your political persuasion is, those are the pulls of our culture. That's what Ken Wilber is saying. We shoot out there. So here's my question this morning, and what it has to do with nature. Does the natural world have anything to teach us about how to live, about where meaning is, and how to do some good in the world? How to, because we're in a, like it or not, as conscious human beings, we have some kind of role in creating the cultures in which we live. It's not just the man anymore, you know, the man's making me. Eventually we realize, wait, I'm the man. And I have some, by doing or not doing, I'm doing something in the world. So does nature have anything to teach us? And I've been kind of hovering around this the last, few weeks, trying to explore different pathways of wilderness. Last week was just myth. But I want to get almost very practical, very sermonish this morning. I want to talk about a cycle, a specific cycle that I think can lend a hand. And I even printed it in our fancy bulletin. So I'd like you to look at it. This comes from the cultural ecologist, philosopher, Buddhist scholar Joanna Macy, one of the most important voices in the environmental movement of the 20th century. She's now the 21st century. She's still alive. She's been working tirelessly for cultural, social, psychospiritual change and environmental change for a long time. And what she realized as an activist is that people get burned out. How many of you have ever been burned out? You're like, okay, there's something I want to do, and I get burned out. And sometimes, not only do we get burned out, we get distracted. We start on something, and then someone else says, well, actually, that's not the real issue. And we're like, and over there we go, somewhere else. So as an observer, as a kind of deep observer of the natural cycles of things, she started asking questions. What does nature, what does the way of the wild, of wilderness, have to teach us about how to be a human being? After all, human beings are nature. We are nature. We don't visit it. We are nature. So what is the natural way of the body being a part and member of the earth and the soil? What is its way? And the very first observation that's worth noting is that nature itself is cyclical. Correct? Things die and new things come back to life. We have something called seasons where we move around things. It's, by the way, the backbone of all religions is just the cyclical observation of reality and being an active participant in the cycles of nature, in the movements, in the turning of things. But what's happened now is that we live in the industrial growth society, which communicates something to us about the nature of reality that's false. What does it communicate? that we are on a train and we're going in one particular direction and we keep laying down tracks on that train and we call that progress. And we live under the illusion, especially if you're a capitalist, and you're all capitalists by virtue of you're a participant in the capitalist system, whether or not, like if you're an anarchist, you still might go to Starbucks. So, but anyway, my point was, one of the things that this sort of capitalist society teaches is that perpetual growth is the way of the future. That we can solve all things through perpetual growth. Have you ever known anything on earth to grow without stopping? Anything in nature. Can it grow at the same rate forever? And the very obvious answer is no. But that is the golden calf that we bow down before. And then we organize our economy in such a way as to prop up this illusion. And every once in a while, the illusion comes crashing down, like in 2008. But we think what needs to happen is we'll fix a few laws and we'll get some naughty people out and we'll scapegoat a few people and we'll do a lot of blaming. But the system itself doesn't need to come down. It needs to be propped back up. And once we get back on the industrial growth train, we'll all be going somewhere. And that mindset trickles down into almost every element of life. It trickles into our education system. It trickles down into what we think about spirituality as some sort of like, where is the cycle? That becomes the question. In the most basic way, which is why I think it's so important to go out. My goal this year, in winter, and I'm not the biggest fan of winter unless it's Vail and it's snowed, like 40 inches, then I'm a great fan of winter. So I'm going to try to go outside every day and see how my body feels about winter. And I don't mean go out like I went to my car, there I did it. I mean just like go outside. And how does my body actually feel about winter? I wonder about that. When I can manually control all things. I was telling the group before, I have a very wealthy friend that lives in Philadelphia, like mega wealthy. And he told me once, he said, the interesting thing about my life is that I can live at the same temperature by flying around on his own plane to all these homes. I have a home in Montana. It's perfect for end of August, September. But you don't want to be there, in February. And then I'll fly to this place and this place and this place and this place. So what does that teach you on the body level? Where is the cycle? Where's the natural rhythm and the natural order? So these are the questions that I think are important to ask. And here's what Joanna Macy tries to do. If you look at this little diagram of a dandelion, she says, if this is the way plants grow, and all things grow, including human beings, we're rooted somewhere, we spring up, we spread our seed, and we die. Okay, welcome to C3. What does this pattern teach us about this cycle as we go through life? And this is what she says. She tries to relate the actual structure of the dandelion or the plant or the tree or nature itself with certain words that can help us form a more active, participating role in our culture, which is what we need. We don't want to be pulled to the two extremes, which is nihilism, I don't care anymore, we're all going to die, or narcissism, I'm going to, get all I can while I can, and damn the grandchildren, they'll have to figure it out. We don't want to do either of those extremes. So this is what she says. The structure of it is very simple. If you want to become a more conscious and active participant in our world, this is what she says you do. First, you find a place of gratitude. You root yourself in the miracle of your own life. Sounds like many spiritual traditions that you can probably think of. Find that place of gratitude. And gratitude can be very, very simple. I don't mean like this kind of fake thing, like I'm really grateful that, my car broke down on the side of the road and, I'm really thankful that I lost my 401k and the whatever. No, we're not making things up. We're trying to ground our own body selves into a place of gratitude, which means a place where we begin to feel and also admit that our life is a gift. We're not causing our hearts to beat. We're not causing our lungs to go in and out. The fact that you're here listening to me and understanding some of what I'm saying is kind of a miracle. It's the miracle of your own existence. I'm not trying to deny any of your problems, issues, and heartaches. We'll get to that. I'm saying that gratitude is a kind of psycho-spiritual ground or root if you want to have any effective change. You have to touch upon that. And so she says, when people tend to go awry, she just reminds them, hey, and I go awry reading my Facebook feed. Suddenly I'm feeling very rootless, groundless, not very grateful for my own existence, angry, and very judgmental, especially about people who think the earth is flat. Okay. Here is the other side of the coin. When we begin to root our existence, touch upon our existence from a place of gratitude, we also touch upon the pain. We cannot help it. It's two-sided. I cannot believe that I am alive, and also being alive hurts. It does. It hurts. And this is what she says is largely missing in our culture, is we need to not only touch upon the pain in our own life, but begin to honor the pain of the people in our circles and spheres of influence. Honoring the pain. Not praising it or slapping out all over social media in a voyeuristic way, but honoring it. Do you know what honoring pain sounds like? It sounds like, tell me what it's like to be you. Or Mary Oliver says, tell me about your despair and I will tell you mine. Now, think about how absent that is from the conversation on the news and in the media. Tell me what it's like to be you. Honoring people's pain, hardship, and difficulty. And she says the best combination so that you're not overwhelmed is to touch upon the gratitude in your own life so that you're able to honor the pain of someone else. So what does that do in the cycle? Where we begin to root ourselves in gratitude, we begin to honor, as we're growing, the difficulties of life, the pain and the suffering. What she says happens is something very surprising. We begin to see with new eyes. The problem with being a progressive person is that we think we don't need new eyes. We have new eyes already. We've got that one covered. But if you haven't been able to tell, there seems to be what I would call a kind of failure of imagination to imagine our lives can be very different. In other words, the capacity to see things differently. And there's some kind of secret that happens, according to Joanna Macy, when we can find ourselves in a place of gratitude and we can begin to honor the pain of the world and the situations in front of us, that we begin to see new ways of living in the world. Not continue the old ways of living in the world, but to allow the imaginative seed to take root, to begin to visualize something different. By the way, you can take any particular issue that seems to be somewhat successful and find how it might relate to this cycle and pattern. Like think about what we were talking about at the beginning with voting. Okay? And if we were to let's say we wanted to make some changes in the world of voting, let's first of all find a place of gratitude. We're grateful we live in a democracy. We're grateful that although it doesn't really feel like it at times, we actually do have a voice. We can change local things. We can change things in our state. Okay? Anyway, you see where I'm going. Then we begin to honor the pain. Well, in that system, is there something unfair or unjust? And what would it feel like to get as close as we can to that pain Who's in pain? Tell me what it's like to be you. Tell me how redistricting affects you. That's where we begin to honor the pain of the world. Then we begin to see in an imaginative way, is it possible to imagine the world differently? Do you see where I'm going? And the cycle, once we pass through these things, has to lead to a kind of going forth. We begin to plant these new ways of seeing in the world. Now, what's important about this particular image of the dandelion is that not all the seeds take root. Go back to your childhood, or for me, like earlier in the summer, and take a dandelion and blow on those seeds, and what happens? You tell me. They go. They go. Some will get stuck in trees, some will stick to your dog. Some will land on the ground. Some will go into the ground. And maybe a few of those will take root. She says, that is the humble reality of any kind of social change. You go forth into the world and you plant what seeds you can, and some will take root and some will not. But in order not to get pulled toward narcissism, my cause is the only cause that matters, or nihilism, this is a whole effing waste of time, any of this, we return back to a place of gratitude. All right, and away the cycle goes again. So, I told you I was going to be, last week I went mythological, and you might have wondered, what was the point of all that? This week I'm going to get very practical, and I think I would just ask you in a very simple way, where are you in this cycle? And if you're stuck anywhere at all, the invitation is to return back to that place of gratitude. And as soon as you touch upon that, you begin to see that the world hurts. You begin to honor that pain. That pain begins to open your eyes, and you begin to say, maybe I can do something and plant a new seed in the world. Which reminds me a little bit of Wendell Berry's poem, which goes like this. When despair for the world grows in me, I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be. I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. Feel how the pull of fear, nihilism, he begins to move toward this place of gratitude. I come into the peace of wild things who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. Some new way of seeing that you can't see, as stars shine even in the daytime. For a time I rest in the grace of the world and am free. So this week, I wish you some wild unfolding of the dandelion of your own life. And may a few of your seeds be scattered around on the earth so that new life and new ways of being in the world will come to be. Thank you.